On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about My Arms, Your Hearse by Opeth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're going back to 1998, a scant 2 years after I came into the world. And it's an album that since then I have come to know. Because at the time I was not really, could you believe at 2 years old, I was not really all that much into Swedish progressive death metal.
You know, it's funny, at the time I was somewhat unaware of Opeth.
Most people were, well, part of it is because they didn't start touring until 2001. They had been like, their debut album came out in 95, but they didn't start like touring or making regular live appearances until 2001 or so, after Blackwater Park came out. Before that, they just kind of like were around and were making music and were well liked in Europe, but most people in the US probably hadn't heard of them.
And this was definitely before Blackwater Park. You can tell sonically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's leading up to there, but and there's, you know, bits and pieces that you would hear later on. And it's Blackwater Park's only 3 years after this, and only 2 albums after this as well. Yeah, I think this is a great example of like the earlier period of Opeth's career before they became Slowpeth, as some people are fond of calling them. I like most of their newer stuff, but the void that they have left in the sort of in the music world in that area, it hasn't been filled for me.
Properly,
like I haven't found another band that kind of does the Opeth thing, mostly because I think most bands are afraid to try and do the Opeth thing, because if you sound too much like Opeth, everyone's going to say you're just copying old Opeth. But
that's been done already, though. So
yeah, so
now we have Dopeth mode.
Dopeth mode.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. We'll talk more about that album later. First, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fantastic, if I do say so myself.
Pretty freaking fantastic.
Pretty fucking fantastic.
All right.
I got a weird, my phrenium, is that what it's called? A phrenium?
I don't know. Your frenulum.
The frenulum, maybe that's what it is, yeah.
Well, I know that's specifically where I know that word from. It refers to part of the penis. But I think it's
you have several frenula.
Yeah, I think it's a general term of small little membranes that hold things together. That you have several on your body.
Right, you have one in your upper lip at the top of your gum line there, and mine got a little bit of an infection. Ow, and still hurts, but
stop touching it. Stop messing with it.
Now you sound like my mom.
I mean, it's just good advice. Sure. And
I'm not messing with it. I mean, I just, if I move my mouth a certain way, then it hurts.
I understand. I mean, that's just mouth injuries in general are hard to deal with because you got a big old muscle in there, and its job is to touch things in your mouth. Right. And it's hard to keep it from doing that. That's its whole thing, is to be in there and to touch things and to check things out and and make sure things are good.
It's the guardian of the mouth.
The tongue is the guardian of the mouth. You heard it here first, everybody. The tongue is the guardian of the mouth. Is that profound in any way? I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think it's particularly profound.
I spent Saturday afternoon, as you are well aware, at a slaughterhouse.
Yes, you went to. There's well, I guess it is a slaughterhouse, but also a meat
market. Yeah,
it's an all-in-one. It's a slaughterhouse. It's a meat shop. I guess you could call it. It's not just a slaughterhouse. Right. You don't usually go to a slaughterhouse to buy your meat. Right. Unless you are like a restaurant.
But all their meat comes in on the hoof. I mean,
yes. Yeah. They do it all right there.
Yeah. They don't bring anything in a box.
It's an all-in-one, which I think, like, you know, I was listening to while you were doing the remote and whatnot from out there. And it was like, I like the idea of it. It's like, oh, you know, local ranchers and stuff.
Sure.
It's locally produced beef. And I think that's cool. I think that's a neat thing. Not that it's particularly hard, I think, to get locally produced beef
here. No,
like especially not in North Dakota. That's not a particularly difficult thing.
And
now, you just have to know a person.
Right.
You just have to know the right people, and you can get locally produced beef.
Sad thing is that this year,
I mean, this with the drought and everything has been fucking awful for ranchers.
Right. So you've been able to get a lot of locally produced beef because they're killing off their herds. Because they can't afford to maintain them.
They can't afford to.
Don't have the water to feed
them. Yeah. No, that's there's lots of beef on the market, I guess.
There is.
Maybe you know, some cheap. We were talking about prime rib earlier today. Maybe get some cheap prime rib. Maybe it's out there. I imagine the price of beef here locally has probably gone down. I don't know. I don't know if nationwide the price of beef has gone down. I'm not sure.
It may go down temporarily, but I think that it's just going to skyrocket quite a bit.
Probably.
Scarcity will cause that.
Yes. It's I don't economics. I don't know how that stuff works. Especially ag economics. I don't know that. That's my old roommate's bag.
Right.
He knows that business.
Yeah, neither you or I are Ernie Goss in any way.
Who's Ernie Goss?
Ernie Goss. Don't you know who Ernie Goss is?
The name sounds familiar.
He's an economist at what university? Creighton University. Whenever they put out the Mid-America Index for the 9 plains in Midwest states. So it's always from Ernie Goss.
Those fucking surveys. That pop up on the AP feed once a month. Okay. And if there's nothing going on, they stay there for a whole week because North Dakota's AP feed is awful.
Yeah, well, it's North Dakota. Nothing fucking happens here.
That's true. I mean, but there are things like nothing happens that is of national significance.
No,
but like there are stories that they could be grabbing from other local news agencies. Sure. I guess I don't know how AP's sort of licensing works and whether or not they want to do attributions to local news agencies and whatnot.
I know when I do my news gathering, because I do 6 newscasts every day. So
yeah,
I use the AP, plus I use 2 local affiliate stations websites.
Yeah.
And I use the local newspaper.
Yeah.
So and looking at all those, a lot of times, man,
it's the same shit.
It is the same shit. It's just, the top story today, a man walked into the hospital after thinking he was having a heart attack. Turns out to be a false alarm.
Turned out he was fine.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess part of it, like, there are stories that are interesting, but not the sort of thing you want to put in a radio newscast.
Sure.
Like, there are stories that I think, I read them from, local affiliate stations and stuff like that. I'm like, neat, but that's not newsworthy for us.
Right. Well, yeah, a lot of those fluff stories that are a reporter went out and said, hey, this woman has this thing going on.
Special interest stories and fluff pieces and stuff.
Yeah, those don't belong.
It's local news. It's neat. Sure. I like it, but you don't put it in a radio broadcast. It is like, maybe it's a good thing for North Dakota that it is somewhat difficult to fill up 90 seconds of airtime with news.
Right.
Maybe that's a decent, a good thing. But
yeah.
Anyway, what have I been doing? Not really much of anything. Played some Halo Infinite over the weekend.
Nice.
Played some more of that again. They had another what's the appropriate word that I'm looking for? Not a beta, but it was a tech preview. That's what they've been calling it. That's why I can't remember it, because no one ever calls it that. It's a tech preview. They were showing off their big team battle map, which I thought was fun. It was really neat to get to play with vehicles and stuff in that engine in the new game and whatnot. I thought was really fun. I'm still excited for the game. And yeah, I guess I didn't organize my thoughts about that, before we started broadcasting, but I had a good time. Other video game stuff I started playing. It came out a couple years ago. Gears Tactics, which is in the Gears of War series of games. And this is a top-down, well, not entirely top-down. The camera angle can change, but it's a from above view tactical like squad-based strategy game. And I only played it for a couple hours last night, but I enjoyed it, and I'm a fan of the Gears series. I still haven't played Gears of War 5, which came out like 2 years ago.
Really?
And that's on Microsoft Game Pass, so I don't really have an excuse for not playing it at the moment. I'm not particularly interested. I thought Gears of War 4 was fine, but I finished the campaign once and was like, okay. Gears of War 4 felt like the video game version of The Force Awakens. Oh, where it was like all these shiny new young characters that are so full of quips and spunk, and it's like there's, you know, so quippy and sarcastic with each other, and I'm just kind of like, remember how the first trailer of this was set to fucking Mad World, when this video game series was depressing, incredibly violent, and scary. Genuine, like Gears of War 1 was genuinely frightening at times. The games are still very violent. They just have a different vibe. You still chainsaw humanoid creatures in half. Awesome. With a fucking chainsaw bayonet. Like, that's still cool as hell.
Chainsaw bayonet.
Yeah.
I haven't played any of these games.
That's because they're Xbox exclusives or Microsoft exclusives these days. You still can't play 2 and 3 on PC. They Gears of War 1 released on PC and Xbox 360. Then for whatever reason, the other 2 in the original trilogy, they didn't release on PC. And then I believe both 4 and 5 are available on PC, as is Gears Tactics. But yeah, I'd love for 2 and 3 to be available on PC, just because I don't want to drag out my fucking Xbox 360. I think they are backwards compatible for Xbox One, so I could do that. I think I have played Gears of War 3 on my Xbox One, so maybe I could try that. But it's been such a long time since I've played through the original trilogy of those games. But now I really want to, because like I'm seeing in Gears Tactics, because it takes place, you know, at the start of the war the original trilogy was a part of. It takes place in that period. And I'm seeing all the art style and the character style, like the way they look. It's different characters, but it's like the same weapons and the enemies and all that. And I'm just getting really nostalgic for it. And I really want to go back and play the original trilogy. So I might. There's a remastered version of the original Gears of War that I might have to play just to see how that feels. Just because they were something special way back when the Gears games were. They were something special. And I think they've kind of lost that a little bit. They're sort of like the Gears of War games are they're kind of like a darker, edgier Michael Bay movie, but a video game. Like it's Michael Bay movies tend to be mildly sanitized so they can be PG-13. Sure. This is like if a Michael Bay movie was, you know, rated R. And was The Rock rated R?
I think The Rock was rated R, yeah.
Okay.
There was a lot of cussing in The Rock and violence.
In any case, you know, if it was a game where you know, if Michael Bay made a movie where the main characters chainsawed in half mutant lizard men, that's Gears of War. Awesome. I
want to go back and watch The Rock again.
Yeah. Although the certain elements, there's a lot of like moments in the original trilogy, especially that are surprisingly emotionally heavy and effective. But they are kind of couched between bits and pieces of sort of mildly juvenile script writing, like looking back on it with a more critical eye. But there are pieces in there, and you know, I think even today I would still be as affected if I was not because I have so much nostalgia for it that I can't sort of detach myself from my attachment to the characters. But I think if I were playing through it the first time, I would still probably get attached to certain characters that end up, dying as the series goes along. And some pretty, what I think are pretty effective, with an A, effective moments, emotionally affecting.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, Gears of War I think is neat. I need to go back and see if it is in fact as neat as I once thought it was.
Sure.
But yeah.
I've been finally trying to finish, because it's been a long time since we've had the game. But trying to finish the Spider-Man game for PlayStation 4.
The Spider-Man. The Spider-Mans.
Yeah. And then I'll do that, and then I'll play the next Spider-Man game, which is the Miles Morales.
That's much shorter.
Yes, much shorter game.
I see. Brain. What was that jogged thought in my brain, but I don't remember what it was about. I don't recall. Want to talk about Opeth?
Sure.
So if you don't know about Opeth, Opeth is a Swedish progressive metal or progressive rock band at this point. Their sound has progressively sort of toned down and mellowed out as their career has gone along. Sure. Their last 3 or 4 albums haven't had any of like their previous sort of the same kind of heavy riffing and absolutely Michael Ackerfeld's death growls have disappeared. Right. Since about 2011, they haven't made any albums that include the death growled vocals from him, which was really like, when I think of Opeth, I think of Michael Ackerfeld's just insane, how insanely deep his voice is, and how like his default like scream is sort of like the sort of guttural growl that you might hear from some other death metal vocalist, where you intentionally have to pitch, your voice down to try and reach, a deeper, more guttural bellow, where Michael Ackerfeld just speaks in baritone. He has an extremely deep voice, and his death growl is incredible. It has so much. Fidelity is the word I want to use. Very fairly articulate as well. It's not completely unintelligible. It's not
That's impressive.
It's not a Chris Barnes where it's just sort of I think when most people, like, I've heard people compare death growls to like Cookie Monster noises. Yeah. And I was like, that's because you've only ever listened to old Cannibal Corpse. You've only ever listened to pre-Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse. Like, there's other death metal bands. His vocals are amazing. And of course, they're amazing instrumentalists. And Michael Ackerfeldt is a fantastic songwriter, and he has been their lead songwriter since he was abandoned by the only original member of the band. So Opeth technically formed in 1989. Okay. They formed as a death metal band. There was a couple different members. The lead vocalist was named David Eisberg. And in 1990, Eisberg asked Michael Ackerfeldt, who was 16 years old at the time, to join them as a bassist. He didn't tell anyone in the band that he was doing this, including the band's bassist. So everybody was a little upset about that happening. And everyone except Michael and David Eisberg left the band, and in 1992, I believe, David Eisberg left the band himself, and Michael Ackerfeldt took over lead vocals. And I think at that time, I'm not sure when he switched to guitar, because sort of depending upon the song, Michael Ackerfeldt will go from... They don't really have lead and rhythm guitar. It's whoever wants to do what. If they need a lead while Michael is singing, then they'll probably have the other guitarist do that to spare Michael some brain power. But
that's always weird to see that a singer at the microphone and playing a lead at the same time.
Yeah, that cannot be easy, and I do not fault any singing guitarist who decides, you know what, I'm just gonna play rhythm for this one. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm not sure when Michael took over guitar duties in general. Guider. Let's see, recruited. Ackerfeld took over vocal duties. He, Lindgren, Norden spent the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that happened.
Doesn't really say.
It probably says, but I don't want to spend 45 seconds of silence looking for it on the Wikipedia page.
But at some point
he did, and that's basically what he's been doing ever since, is vocals and guitar. There's been a number of other lineup changes, but since 1992, it's been Michael Ackerfeld basically running the show in a manner that I think is generally quite a bit more stable than like Death. When you think of other bands where you've got someone who is, you know, the guy, you know, the songwriter, the guitarist, and the vocalist, and then there's the rest of the band around them. Like you had Death, where it was just a continuously rotating cast of supporting band members, and it was really just the Chuck show, the Chuck Schuldiner show. As far as I'm aware, their current lineup has been around for quite some time. Let's see, Michael Ackerfeld, 1990 to present. Martin Mendez joined in 97. Martin Axenrod, 2006, Frederick Akason, 2007, and Joachim Svalberg, 2011. So actually a fair amount. Martin Mendez is, I guess, the only other member of the band who was around when the album we're talking about was recorded. Is their bass player. Other than that, everyone else has left and been replaced.
Really?
For, I'm sure, a variety of different reasons. It's been a little while since I've read the full story of Opeth, but I don't think there's anything. I don't think there was any like particularly juicy drama surrounding any of the band members leaving. I might be wrong about that. You know, we don't do a ton of research on here. We mostly just listen to. We just listen to it and tell you whether or not we like it. You're not here for a deep dive. Speaking of listening to it and whether or not we like it, what do you think?
I liked it. This is really good.
This is great stuff.
I mean, I love that there are like whole songs where there's not even distorted guitar at all.
Yeah. There's a couple of those that basically just turn into an acoustic guitar ballad, more or less.
Yeah, or at least clean electric. I mean,
yeah, lots of clean electric on here as well. There's one song on here. It's Epilogue, which is technically the last song on the actual album itself.
Right. There are like 3 songs after that on this, right?
2 songs after that. Both of them are covers, which was interesting.
Yeah, they covered. Actually, one of those songs is by a band, possibly one of the best metal bands ever, and Kale's favorite. Don't say it.
Don't say it. Don't say it the way I know you're going to say it.
Smeltic Frost.
Okay. At least you said it in a sillier wrong way. Celtic Frost. Yes, they cover Circle of Tyrants, Circle of the Tyrants.
Yeah.
And as well as Remember Tomorrow by Iron Maiden. At the very end of the album. And I remember because I don't know if those are on the vinyl version, because I have the vinyl for this. It's actually the disc 2 is still sitting in my record player because I didn't bother taking it out of my record player. But yeah, I don't know if those are on the vinyl version. That would be kind of weird. Just like on your vinyl, just vibing to Opeth, and it says, "What's this?" all of a sudden, like. It's obviously Opeth. That's still Michael, but like, what is this? Doesn't sound like them. I think the first time, because I'm not very familiar with Celtic Frost, the first time I heard like the opening of Circle of the Tyrants, I was like, oh, is this just like a re-recording of like one of their really early songs? Like something off of Orchid or something like that? But no, it's a Celtic Frost cover.
And I know you've heard this song before.
Circle of the Tyrants? Yeah. Was that on the album we listened to?
It was not on the album we listened to, but it was on the Obituary album we listened to.
Did they do a cover of it too?
Yeah.
Why is everybody covering Celtic Frost songs?
And the one they cover is just Circle of the Tyrants.
It's always Circle of the Tyrants.
It's a song everybody really likes.
I guess it's everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. Yeah, Epilogue basically sounds like it could fit in on one of their modern albums. Essentially. But does this slap?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
For the vast majority of it, it slaps.
It slaps, and then it gives you a break, and it's a beautiful, completely different direction for what we were doing just now.
And then it comes back and slaps. It comes
back and slaps again. Yeah.
That's their modus operandi. That's how they do it.
Sure.
And I think the thing that I love about Opeth more than anything is like there are other bands who do sort of the dynamic switch between, you know, a distorted electric and then going into acoustic or going into clean electric and stuff. There are plenty of metal bands and extreme metal bands even that do that. But Opeth has such a particular style about it. It's kind of gothic in a way. And it's something that just the way that they sound, I instantaneously associate with like autumn, basically.
Right.
Like it's not like a cold, wintry black metal sound. It's still warm, but it's got kind of that sense of like slightly creepy sounding.
Right.
Most of their music is slightly creepy sounding, and I attribute that primarily to the use of mellotron throughout a lot of their albums. It gives it kind of a creepier edge to some of it. But like slightly creepy, slightly depressing. There's kind of just a tinge of sort of forlornness to almost all of their early stuff. That just, I don't know, it fits fall so perfectly well. This is probably the most Opeth is one of the most like goth bands. They're not really a goth band,
right? But
they're the closest that I really get in my own comfort zone, because I'm not really a fan of like goth metal, generally speaking. Like Opeth and certain Paradise Lost albums and that sort of thing. Sure. That's the most I get into like goth metal, basically.
And yeah, for me, it's Typo Negative.
Yeah, Typo Negative is the goth metal band. Like they are the goth metal band.
That reminds me, speaking of the goth metal band, I saw a new release. It was a music video by Cradle of Filth.
Really?
Put out a new song.
Oh yeah.
They put out new music.
I didn't listen to it, but it came up on my feed somewhere.
Sure, and I'm watching the band, and I can tell even Danny Filth, the backup singers, guitarists, all of them have that expression like, we've been fucking sick of this for 20 years.
We don't want to do this anymore.
But if we don't do this, then we don't sell albums. So I guess we're doing this.
I have a mortgage I'm still paying. I gotta. Danny Filth is like my crazy house with the skeleton in a glass case on the floor.
Yeah.
Isn't gonna pay for itself.
Right.
I don't like. That's the weirdest fucking thing, that Danny Filth had an episode of fucking MTV Cribs.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Who watched that? That was
apparently we did.
I saw it on YouTube, but like who in the MTV crowd? Like how low down on the list was Cribs at that point that they're like, how about Danny Filth? Like maybe Cradle of Filth had a couple of appearances on like Headbangers Ball.
Sure.
But by the time you get to MTV Cribs, Headbangers Ball had been dead for a while.
Yeah.
Although I think it lasted longer than most people think, because I know like early Killswitch Engage music videos
made
Headbangers Ball. The music video for My Curse in 2001 was featured on Headbangers Ball. So it was around in some form in 2001.
I used to really look forward to Headbangers Ball.
I mean, it was for an entire generation of metalheads. It was their moment of representation. It was you know, it was the genre's time in the sun, essentially. Like, hey, look at this, everybody. Like you know, oh, you're watching MTV. Well, here you go. Here's some like unavoidable. If you tune into this television station at this time, you're gonna see some metal. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Nobody does that. The only people who do that are Adult Swim at 4 in the morning. when they have a fucking when they have dying fetus on Fish Center Live. It's the weirdest
in front of a damn aquarium.
It's the weirdest fucking thing. There's or like there was a South Park episode a couple years ago that used I don't know what the plot of the episode was, other than I think Stan's dad opens a pot farm, or something like that, and Stan and the boys put together a band or something to play, and for whatever reason the song that they play is just a dying fetus song. I don't know the context of that or why that happened, but Stan Marsh was performing a dying fetus song.
Like you do
on South Park, so sure, why not? That's a band that I've always kind of bounced off on. I've bounced off of like their most recent album that I listened to any part of. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then it's
you
whatever.
Lost interest.
Whatever. I just lost interest in them. But I think they're a good band. I just kind of don't care.
Sure.
You know who I do care about though?
Who's that?
Opeth.
Me too.
I care about Opeth. So this album was pretty well liked when it came out, and it's still pretty well liked today. The aggregate, the average of all the scores that I gathered together was 94.
Yeah,
a 94. A bunch of 10 out of 10s given to it. Sputnik gave it a 5 out of 5, et cetera, et cetera. This I think is sort of in the in the pantheon of in their top couple of their death metal era.
Right.
It's like this and Blackwater Park sort of vying for the title of the best albums of their extreme metal era. And I would agree with that. I think this is a fantastic album. Then you have Ghost Reveries. I think Ghost Reveries is probably a number 3 there. And you have Morning Rise and Still Life and Watershed and whatnot they're all really good. They're all still Opeth, but I think My Arms Your Hearse and Blackwater Park are cream of the crop.
What's your favorite song in this?
My favorite song on this is Demon of the Fall.
That's my favorite song on this.
That's great. It's very rare that we have the same favorite song.
I was gonna say Demon of the Fall.
It's an incredible track, and I love because it is one of the most. For most of the song, it is by far one of the most sinister tracks on the album, and then the end is just this gorgeous acoustic guitar instrumental. And the last melody that they do, the last lead melody in that song that then goes into the acoustic guitar and carries through that section is just so beautiful. Just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful melody. There is a live version of Demon of the Fall that they did for a 2003 live EP, essentially, a performance that they did. And it's the recording quality was great, but also back then, because there was their Live at Red Rocks show, where they do some of their older songs, and you can tell that Michael hasn't used that part of his register in a while. He hasn't used the death growl part of his voice in quite a while, and so it was a little disappointing, but it was nice to hear those songs. But hearing him, in his prime performing that kind of music when he was well practiced at it. Holy shit. And then just switching very easily to his incredible clean singing voice as well. Because that's as much as I love to praise how great Michael Ackerfeldt's death growls are, his clean singing is amazing. He's just an amazing vocalist all the way around. The guy's very good and also very funny. We mention this every time we talk about.
Very dry, funny dude.
It's just extremely dry humor, but very, very funny. I watched a little bit of a kind of awkward interview that he was doing. He was just basically just chatting with Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater over Zoom. But it's kind of funny because he's 47, he's your age, and he looks like he's 47.
Sure.
But it's just his mustache that he always has, but long hair and the glasses, he looked like Weird Al. He looked like Swedish Weird Al.
Sure. Although Weird Al doesn't have a mustache anymore.
I suppose, yeah. Weird Al hasn't had a mustache in quite a while.
Yeah, decades.
But for some reason, I just immediately like, oh, slightly, curly or wavy, brown hair, glasses, mustache. That's Weird Al.
So he established that early on.
Yeah, that was his look. Yeah, it's just he kind of looks like you're like a cool teacher at this point. But yeah, this is fantastic stuff. Some other like honorable mentions. I think the like first big song, April Ethereal, I think is really great as well. And I remember really liking When, but I don't recall precisely why I liked When quite a bit. Even though I listened to this album not even 30 minutes ago, details of it get lost to me.
I need to re-listen to actually the song When, because the When last night was I had my headphones on in my recliner, and then I woke up this morning.
Oh yeah,
okay. I went, oh shit, so I had to go back.
Just go back to and listen to. Yeah. I do that with podcasts a lot, where like I will start to fall asleep listening to a podcast that I'm actually like invested in, and so I will pause that, and like I will pause it and then put on my noise essentially.
Sure. And
then in the morning or whenever I pick that podcast back up, I hit the 15-second rewind like 20 times to get back to a part that I remember.
I wish it worked that magic way that some people think it might, that listening to it, you'll still retain it somehow while you're sleeping.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
No, it doesn't.
You don't actually, if you retain anything, it's vague impressions and feelings.
Right.
It's no actual detail. And if you are so into something that you need to listen to it while you sleep, or that you're to the point where you're trying to listen to it while you sleep in order to gain some sort of advantage, you need the details. You don't need vague impressions.
like that episode of Dexter's Lab. You know what I'm talking about? You remember the show Dexter's Lab?
I remember Dexter's Lab. I don't remember the plot of any single episode.
There was one episode where he was going to try to learn French, and he...
Omelette du fromage.
Yep. The record skipped while he was sleeping, and that's all he could say when he woke up. He belched into the microphone.
That was...
I apologize for that.
That was a very interesting sonic effect there. It sounded like someone had hit, like... It sounded like you were on a wah pedal for a second. It was like, oh. Someone had put like a weird effect on you for a second. It's like on a foot. I mean, there are other kinds of pedals that have the foot control where you push it down.
Right. There are other ones. Yeah, there's a pitch pedal for that.
Yeah, pitch pedals.
That Dimebag Darrell used a lot.
Yeah. So what medal are you bestowing upon this album? Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca.
This gets a gold.
This gets a gold.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It
gets a gold inlaid and some sort of spooky mansion door. I'm just picturing, because it's not on the cover of this album. I'm picturing the mansion on the cover of their newest album of In Cauda Venenum. Venenum. There's like that's probably the other reason why I associate Opeth with like spooky kind of fall, autumn, like Halloween time stuff, is because all of their album covers are like that. Like all of their album covers, with the exception of like Sorceress, I think. Well, Sorceress is like a gothic looking peacock. Heritage is the one I'm thinking of, where it's actually like colorful. There's like bright reds and like a tree and stuff. But almost all of their other album covers are like, ooh, mysterious, and spooky.
Sure.
Ooh. And so I just very strongly associate with that. I think that's these days maybe an undervalued part of selling an album is like, what's actually on the cover. Is this some dope shit?
Yeah, it was in my day as well. I mean, you go down to Musicland and you'd
peruse.
Peruse. I forgot the word peruse for a moment there. And you peruse
It's like the country Peru, but there's two of them.
There's two peruse. And you would, shuffle through the cassette tapes and the ones that had like spooky, scary shit on them. You're like, oh, let's check it out. Does it have the Does it have the parental advisory on
yes.
it? Yeah. Who's the record company? Oh, Megaforce. Yep. Okay, we're doing this.
We're doing this one. Yeah. Well, and like that's what I got. That's why I got that Swallow the Sun album. Is because I saw on the record store's Facebook page, I saw the album cover and I was like, oh, I need that. I don't care what it is. I need that. And I got it because the album cover was dope and it turned out to be a really good album. But that doesn't happen to me a lot. And I feel like maybe I should do that. Like the thing is vinyl's expensive and I don't know if I want to be that carefree about how I go about buying vinyl. Because if I just walked into the record store and bought every album that I thought looked cool, then I would have a problem. And my problem would be I have no money.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like there's some metal bands that I feel like metal has sort of lost its touch a little bit of like actually genuinely cool album covers. There's some that immediately come to mind to me, but like there's others where it's just like, this is just kind of like the whole Dan Seagrave style metal covers. Those don't really appeal to me all that much. Just that where it's just a mess of junk. It's just, there's too much going on here. I get it. It's a death metal album, like, but there's nothing intriguing about that to me. I'm getting it because I know who this band is and I know I like their stuff. I'm not getting it because of the album cover. But then you have, Swallow the Sun, which is, like a sort of kind of, I guess that's one of the other like more gothic bands that I like.
Swallow the Sun.
Sort of gothic death doom type band.
Or Sun themselves.
Or Sun, yeah. Sun also has cool album covers.
They do.
Like I feel like black metal and doom metal especially, they get it. Like there's a lot of really cool ass album covers in black metal and doom metal.
Indeed.
Anyway. Next week, what are you thinking for albums you're gonna bring?
I had a few thoughts that I was sort of still mulling over on the way over here, but then I said the word Megaforce, and I think we're gonna go in an entirely different direction for next week.
Okay,
something that you would never listen to all the way through on purpose.
Of course,
we're gonna do the album "Speak English or Die" by the Stormtroopers of Death.
Okay. I'm mildly nervous. Those are some concerning statements and some fairly is that meant to be tongue in cheek?
It's hard to say.
Are they actually racists or?
Well, I mean, two of them. Well, Scott Ian is one of them in the band.
He seems like a decent fellow.
He seems like a decent guy, but there was a lot of stuff that SOD, well, maybe, I don't know.
If it was meant to be sort of, well, I guess we'll find out how I feel about it.
Right. I listened to this when I was younger, and some of it was like, ha, 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 ha.
Okay.
I want to listen to it again as an older guy.
Just to see how you feel.
Yeah.
See how it holds up.
It had a lot of energy. It was really fun, a lot of it.
I mean, skinhead punk was a thing for a reason.
Yeah.
It had a lot of energy to it, and it was fun, but also the dead Kennedys didn't come up with Nazi punks fuck off out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a thought out decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking of Green Room.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Okay, so next week, Stormtroopers of Death,
or just SOD, yeah.
Speak English or Die. We'll see how that ends up going. Until then, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Follow our pages there if you want to see when new episodes go up.
Sure.
You can get a notification. Otherwise, you can just subscribe to our feed on Libsyn or on your iOS device, your Apple Podcasts. And you'll probably get notifications there if you have enabled that setting. Because I think you have to enable it in order for it to pop up on your screen. If it's such a big deal to you, then go and do that. All right. Till you hear from us next time, thank you very much for listening to the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Cale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.